Hey, Paul. Andrew Stevens. Thanks for reaching out. Um, Here's what I remember about the Boys in Company C and the Fury. It was 1977, and I went into audition for Sidney J. Fury for one of the five leads in this movie called The Boys in Company C. It was coveted by every young actor in town, and I drove all night from Sun Valley, Idaho, where I was skiing, to LA, exhausted and disheveled, to get to the audition on time, and I actually got the role. We flew coach on China Airlines to the Philippines, and we were there for 9 weeks, filming in exact sequence beginning to end, which was a completely new experience then and now, actually, because movies almost uniformly shoot out of sequence. So that was mainly because they shaved our heads in the boot camp sequence, and then little by little our hair grew back throughout the movie. So sequence was important. As soon as I get back to the States, I had auditioned years before for these guys I'd never heard of, named George Lucas and Brian De Palma, and they were casting together two little movies that this weird Star Wars movie that I thought made no sense, and a movie called Carrie, which was actually appropriate for me and my age at the time. But De Palma elected to go with William Catt and Sissy Spacek, who were a half a generation older than me. But he had remembered me, and I got an audition for this movie called The Fury. And he actually booked me for the role. The problem was I was under contract to Universal Studios, and I had to get permission to be loaned out from Universal to 20th Century Fox, and the studio just paid me my rudimentary, probably $500 a week, and negotiated a big salary for me on The Fury and took all the money. But what complicated matters was that I was shooting an NBC Universal series at the time called The Oregon Trail, and we were in Flagstaff, Arizona. So the studios worked together, Universal and Fox, to work out a schedule, and I bounced back and forth continually from Flagstaff, Arizona to Los Angeles, Chicago, and ultimately Israel, where we shot The Fury. Kirk Douglas couldn't have been nicer. He was warm, he was embracing, he was paternal, he had no attitude whatsoever. And when I really saw the grandeur of his iconic celebrity was when we got to Israel, and he was the biggest star in the world in Israel. Kirk Douglas, because Kirk Douglas was Jewish, and he was revered and loved by all Israelis. And he was like, imagine traveling with the Beatles, and still he was gregarious. He was not reclusive. He was inclusive, and we shot a whole sequence in Caesarea. We originally based in Tel Aviv, and then went to Caesarea, where we shot the terrorist sequence where I think my dad's been killed, and John Cassavetes whisks me away, and Kirk and I had sort of a swimming competition. I remember that when we got in the ocean and we were racing into shore, I actually was beating Kirk Douglas, and De Palma said, slow down. He said, you can't win, and at the most you have to tie. So but it was a great scene, sitting around the table there. De Palma set a dolly track that was 180-degree semicircle, and we shot the scene in one take. We did several takes of this particular one take, but there were no cuts in that scene where we were eating and talking, and then Cassavetes comes over. I think I go to the men's room or whatever, and then all hell breaks loose. So hope you enjoyed this. Thanks so much for reaching out. Bye-bye.